Hey, what's up you guys? It's Lexi DIY and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we have a super exciting video, but first I want to say thank you to today's sponsor, which is Modern Fertility. So I didn't know this, but 1 in 8 couples actually struggle with infertility, and to me that number is just way higher than I thought. Dustin and I do want to have kids in the future. We're not really sure what timing would be right. But taking this test and just getting more information regarding my hormones and what my fertility is like could really sway our decision on, when we should start trying and just give us some insight on that. I'm more excited that we get to do this at home, because if you know me, I do not like going to the doctor's office. I do not like getting my blood drawn, and with this I can just do a simple finger prick right here in my house, and I don't have to go to the doctor, and it's much more affordable than like conventional hormone testing.
Let's see what's actually inside the Modern Fertility Hormone Testing Kit. So they actually sent me this cute little pin and then really great detailed instructions on how I'm going to take the test. You actually take the test on the 3rd day of your cycle, and then they show you everything that's in there, as well as tell you how to activate your kit and all of the supplies you're going to need to take the test and return it, including postage. So I love that. That makes it a lot easier. Once you send your samples in, you usually get test results back in 7 to 10 days, and it's so simple.
You can actually get $20 off using the link in my description box below, and it's already really affordable, so make sure that you guys take advantage of that. And if you're thinking about potentially having kids in the future, or you just want to know more about your thyroid or your hormone levels, definitely check Modern Fertility out, because they are absolutely incredible. And again, thank you so much to Modern Fertility for sponsoring today's video.
We're hopping straight into the tiling now. On Tuesday, you guys saw that I had some issues with the thin set. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But first, I want to say this is only my 2nd time laying a tile floor. I've done large tiles in the shower, and we did tile floors in our primary bathroom at the last house. But this is only my 2nd time, so I still have a lot to learn. But you can see that little suction cup there. I don't know why, and this is you put it on the tile and it suctions up the tile because these are pretty large to handle, and you use it to maneuver it, but I couldn't get it to stay on. So if you guys have any tips and tricks on that, definitely let me know. But you'll also notice that I am kind of breaking the cardinal rule of tiling here, which is that you generally start in the center of the room. That way that everything is even on the sides. I specifically did not do that because when I laid it out, it was leaving these tiny, tiny, tiny little cuts on the outside edges, and then they would look even smaller once I put the baseboards on top, and I was like, ooh, I definitely don't want that. So what I did is I started with a half cut against the wall. I did measure this out beforehand so that I knew I wouldn't have any smaller cuts. I also have to be really, really careful about how many cuts I'm doing, because in tiling, you're generally going to have some miscuts and have to redo them. These are larger tiles. I also got them on clearance. They're not available anymore, so I only have a limited amount, and I can't really afford to mess too many up, and this gave me the opportunity to have some replacement tiles in the event that I happened to miscut, which I did. Anyway, yes, I am using a ladle to bring out my thin set. I know that that's probably not the professional way to do it. However, it was what was working best for me. And then after I put thin set on the floor and I put grooves in it with my trowel, I'm back buttering the tiles, which basically means I'm putting thin set on the back of the tile, and I'm also using my trowel to get those groove marks. And then essentially once you push everything together, it kind of comes together like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and it adheres to the floor properly, which is exactly what we want. And I found actually that it was easier after I put those trowel marks in to then put my spacers under, whereas when I was doing it the opposite way around, my spacers were kind of flinging out every time because they kept getting caught on the trowel, which makes sense, but it's just not something I thought about before I went into it. I don't necessarily love the spacers that I picked. They can be a little hard to get out. I really wanted to go with this system that you put underneath and you like screw this little cap down and it pulls all of the tiles very centered together, but it was pretty pricey, so I just chose to go with these because I happen to already have a bag on hand. Also, I'm not sure if you can see it. I know that you could see it in the first little part of the video. I do have a laser level. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I do have a laser level that's going across the room because my uncoupling membrane definitely wasn't level because, like I said, it was pushed up against the walls, and the walls, especially in an old house, are just never gonna be exactly straight or exactly square. I'm not gonna lie, this is a very time and labor intensive process. I cut a lot of me taking a break and other stuff out of this, and it is sped up right now times 10. So these first few tiles were really the most difficult part for me because I knew that I had to get these all even and lined up, otherwise the rest of the room was not gonna cut it. So after 5 hours and a hurt back, I was like, all right, you know what, we'll take a break, we'll go to sleep, and we'll wake up tomorrow and do more. So that's what I did. Now, this is where I switched for literally one tile to pre-mixed grout. You can see, or not grout, thin set, I'm sorry. You can see literally how much thicker it is, and this was a huge mistake on my part. I didn't want to mix any more of the thin set because the consistency kept giving me trouble, and that added a lot of hours to my first day of tiling. So total, I probably spent 10 hours doing stuff the first day, but I only spent about 5 of those actually laying the tile, making sure everything was correct and all of that. But that other thin set, it was so chunky, it was so thick, and it just was not the move. So I decided, you know what, Lexi, you gotta learn how to get the right consistency. And once I did, things were just moving along so much more quickly with the thin set that I mixed myself. Now, I did accidentally cut that tile too large, so I decided, you know what, we're gonna make sure that it gets done right. I cut a smaller tile to make sure that it was good to go, and we fixed it. When you're doing stuff like this, you're always gonna run into little things like that, and really the best advice I can give is that you are doing this yourself. Give yourself some grace, and it's going to be worth all the frustrations, all of the hours that you spent doing this when you step back and you realize, oh my gosh, I just laid this floor all by myself. Also, I want to note that for some reason, these tiles look so much more gray on camera. They actually are more of a white with the lightest gray hint. I don't know how to describe it to you. But I don't know, it just doesn't translate what they actually look like in real life. And I'm really, really happy that I went with these instead of the black ones because I just think that the black ones would have been really, really busy. So anyway, I did need to rip down some of the tiles just barely with my wet saw because although I calculated and everything should have fit, with full tiles against the other wall, because of, I guess, the grout joints being a little bit bigger than I had anticipated, I did have to rip down some of those tiles so that they could go up against this wall right here when you walk in. I needed to mix more, and guys, I learned so much doing this. So I got a different mixing attachment. It kind of looks like a cake batter one, and that one mixed up way better. And then I also changed the setting on my drill. So basically there's a bunch of different drill settings, and I turned it all the way down, and then I turn it up by 1 each time to see where the drill would stop getting stuck, because that was another thing that I was struggling with, and some people on my TikTok live actually helped me out with that. So thank you so much, because I really learned a lot, and I'm excited because I have to tile 2 more floors. I'm going to be doing both of our bathrooms in this house, so I feel like I am going to do such a better job at those next time. Also, huge pro tip, wear some knee pads. I'm wearing knee pads in this, and they are a lifesaver. They are flat now. I actually got them from the dollar store, and I really like the way that they fit. But after a few projects, they kind of flatten out because they're just foam. But highly recommend. Your knees will thank you. This is where it starts getting pretty chaotic. I had been doing this, a total of maybe 15 to 20 hours, and I was exhausted and problems started to arise. Like, this tile didn't fit up against the wall, and at this point it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I didn't want to use my wet saw outside, which is where I needed to use it because I didn't want to disturb my neighbors. So I don't know if this was the right move or not, but it was the right move for me. I just cut that drywall right out, and I made sure that that tile was going to fit so that we could finish this project and keep it moving. I needed the floor to be done. And then I also kept forgetting at this point to back butter the tiles because I was just so tired. I back buttered that one, but I forgot to do a lot. And then I needed to undercut the door jambs with my multi-tool to get the proper height. I didn't know this at first, but just use a piece of scrap tile, and that is going to get you, be your guide to cutting that out so that you don't cut too much or cut it all wonky. Now, I don't know why I thought that it was a good idea to sit on the tiles or walk on them or put my full body weight on them. I am a little peanut, but there is a risk of cracking the tiles when you do that, so would not recommend. Definitely would not recommend. Once we got to the last few pieces, I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness, the hard part is over, and it's finally gonna start looking like we're putting this laundry room back together once this is finished. So once the tiles are all laid, you definitely need to let it sit for 24 hours before you walk on it or do anything to let that thin set cure. After 24 hours, it was time to take out the spacers. Now, I know that right here you can see there's still a little bit of that uncoupling membrane exposed. Don't worry, I'm going to be putting a transition strip here. It's not that the tiles were cut incorrectly or anything. It's gonna be covered up. So anyway, I'm taking these tiles out with a rubber mallet. Now, there is, for these specific spacers, this little tool that essentially clamps it on both sides, pushes that little yellow piece through and snaps off the clear piece. However, I did use that in my last house, and maybe it's because there were marble tiles on the floor, but it did leave some scratches that I just could not get out, and it drove me crazy. So I decided that even though I needed a little bit more elbow grease with the rubber mallet method, it wouldn't scratch up the floors and it would give me a better result in the end. So that's what I ended up doing. Now, I was pretty messy with the entire process. So before I grouted, I wanted to make sure I just cleaned up any of that thin set that was left on the floor with just a damp sponge. Now, prior to this experience, guys, I had only ever used premixed grout and premixed thin set because I just thought it would be easier. I was a little intimidated to whip out, my power tools to mix this up when we first started. In the first house. But let me tell you guys, please do it. It's so much easier, and the product is a lot better, a lot easier to use, and it is so much more affordable when you're using just the grout and the thin set that you mix yourself, and you're probably going to get a much better result. Now, once you get to this step, it's super fast, super simple. All I'm doing is I'm putting globs of my grout on the floor, and I'm running it over all of the tiles to make sure that I'm filling in those grout lines between tiles. You definitely don't want a bunch of excess grout left on the floor, but if it's gonna look a little hazy at first, don't worry if you accidentally, left a little patch, because we're gonna clean it up here in a few minutes and you'll see what I'm talking about. But when you do this, it's pretty fast, you work really quick, and basically you're just pushing it into the grouts, but you don't want to, or into the joints. You don't want to push directly up a joint or directly from the side. You kind of want to go from a 45-degree angle, and the reason for that is you don't want to scoop that grout out that you just placed. So it does take a little bit of practice, but it's definitely the easiest part of the entire tiling process. And once you get here, you're like, oh my gosh, it's really happening, it's coming together, and it starts looking really, really good. You're gonna wait around 30 minutes for the grout to cure, and then you're just gonna come back and go with a damp sponge to wipe that hazy excess part off. Now, I probably shouldn't have worn my dirty shoes in here, but you know, it is what it is. You live and you learn. And then the floor was looking so much better. I'm gonna give you just a quick before and after of the floor, and guys, stay tuned for next week because we are so close to finishing this laundry room.